Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the program. It is exactly 8:57 a.m. and our next guest is the founder and leader of the African Muslim Assembly of Azania, or Ama Azania. He is Brother Malik Arafat and is here to talk to us about the introduction of the African Muslim Self-Determination and Equality Charter, plus the African Muslim Common Agenda. Brother Malik Arafat, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for inviting me.
Lovely to have you on the show. And this sounds like a very, very interesting concept. I'm immediately thinking it's about bringing different Muslims together with one common goal. Would I be on track in suggesting that, or is this something totally different?
You're correct. That's exactly our intention. Our intention is that even though we are all diverse in terms of our backgrounds, and we all have different organizations and that we are attached to, if we can find a way through a document that would bind our activities together. For instance, our assertion is that there's need for dawah in South Africa, and a massive dawah for that purpose. And for us to be able to do that, if we can all get our all organizations together in one room and say, what is the best plan that we can all agree upon to achieve that objective? And of course, everything else will fall out of that, and develop out of it.
Okay. At the risk of being a bit unpopular when I make the next statement, is that we have so very many different organizations serving different agendas in the country. Alhamdulillah, all of them are trying to do their best. Everyone has, at the end of the day, possibly a common goal, and that is to do as much dawah as possible, as much upliftment as possible, as much charity as possible. But because there are so many different groups of people doing this kind of work, do you think that we could ever come to an entity with a common goal in mind and work together to promote the concept that you're thinking about?
I don't think there will ever come a time when all the Muslim organizations in the country will become one entity. But what may become one entity is the entire Muslim community, in terms of, because the majority of our people are not in organizations. The majority of the Muslims in the country aspire for Islam to be out there in the open. We do not have a common voice. I come from the indigenous community, and I can tell you that there's silence in terms of Islam in that area. The majority of our people do not hear anything about Islam. The majority of our people do not see a Muslim representing them in any way. And I think that's the area we want to enter into, whereby there is a clear representation of Muslims in the public space. For instance, if you look at all the organizations that have been involved in the struggle, all of them have without doubt classified themselves as socialists. And we don't have an organization that is Muslim that is out there and doing similar work out in the community. And so this is our intention, that we should enter that space with the backing of the Muslims, who themselves will understand and support that initiative. And for us to enter into that space, we need to determine ourselves. That's why we need to have a self-determination. Determine ourselves as a community, not determine ourselves, not self-determination in the sense of toppling the government or fighting the government or being in opposition to the government, no. But in the sense that all the Muslims of South Africa can self-determine and say, this is what Islam is all about, even though we differ, even though we may come from different madhahib, etc. But we are of the same view that Islam has to grow in South Africa. We envision a situation where in the next 20 years, if we can have at least 10% of people in the country be Muslim, and that's our 10 million people. And if we can achieve that, Islam then is entrenched in the country. At this point in time, we are an insignificant minority, even though we are very loud and present and and in the public arena as individual Muslims. I mean, if you talk to people, they recognize who certain individuals are who are in government, etc., etc. But they don't see them as part of a collective of Muslims. They see them as individuals who are playing roles in particular organizations or government structures.
Okay, you have gone on to say that the president of Al Jamaa political party recently made a public statement of support for the charter and common agenda in Cape Town. South Africa, well, obviously in our country, and even alluded to discussions about the need for an African Muslim charter being on the continental agenda. And if that could be realized, it would be very, very big, huge indeed. That would indicate the strides Muslims are making, not only in South Africa, but throughout the continent. And we do also know that north of our borders, there are large indigenous Muslim communities. And perhaps we
Correct.
can work more closely with them to realize all of these ambitions of the Muslim Ummah as a whole.
Correct. Muslims in sub-Saharan Africa really are the ones that are really at our heart, because they are minorities in those areas. So we are similarly, we are a minority in South Africa. And so if there's a way of us to come together in a way that will increase the da'wah in all these areas, it really will be better for us, because I can tell you, Christian groups are working very hard, not only in sub-Saharan Africa, but also in North Africa, and also in Arabia, and in Indonesia, and all these places, when they are trying all they can to convert Muslims to become Christians or otherwise. And so, we've got to also do the same and work as a collective with that realization and understanding that if we do not do that, the danger is that we're going to see our children becoming atheists and becoming anything else except Muslims in the near future.
So let's look at the reality on the ground in the townships in and around South Africa. I do know that there are Muslims in most of the townships. What more needs to happen? I also know we've just come out of the month of Ramadan. I've spoken to a couple of African Muslim people from the different townships, and they were working hard at promoting Islam during this time of the year. What more needs to happen? How much more buy-in do we need from other Muslim communities to make this happen? And I do know other Muslim communities are equally keen to go out there and spread Islam as widely as they possibly can. But there seems to be some sort of barrier to entry. What do you think those challenges are?
I think the biggest challenges we have are perceptions. Local perceptions in terms of relationships between, the different races in the country. You'll agree with me that Islam is represented to a great degree by, the Indian and Malay communities. And African people generally have a perception about those communities, whether because of the working, relationships they've had, as workers for these communities or whatever it is. And that's one area that we really have to deal with. Secondly, there's the area of business, where in today, the lots of the tuck shops and spaza shops in the townships have been taken over by Somalis and Bangladeshis, etc., etc. That has also created another type of perception, which has become also very negative. But also there's also what media portrays of Muslims. That negative portrayal of Muslims, whether in films, Hollywood films, whether it is in mass media, etc., etc. These are huge challenges that we have to deal with, because, particularly when you look at the West and its media, etc., they're highly organized, and they pump in a lot of money in creating those perceptions. We don't see the Muslims responding likewise. Instead, we see Muslims trying to fit in within those situations, rather than creating a position of themselves that defines them as Muslims. So I think in South Africa, we have the possibility of doing that because the Muslim society, Muslim community in South Africa is well known for its philanthropy, is well known for its good work globally, etc., etc. So we have a good standing both locally and globally because of the amount of work that our people have been doing. Now, what we need to do is to reverse the perceptions deliberately so in order for us to be able to achieve that. And one of the ways of doing that is if we can be able to achieve through equality, which is part of the charter that we are promoting, is that if we can find a way of creating equality amongst themselves, where I don't have to complain that my Indian or Malay brother is mistreating me or my Malay Indian sister is mistreating me, but we must stand together as brother and sister in the same way as we stand in prayer, shoulder to shoulder. We're going to be able to do the same in the public arena, and we must be seen to be brothers indeed, rather than brothers by convenience.
Okay, so you've had a very positive response from the Al Jamal political party. Who are the other role players you have already approached about this? What sort of responses are you getting, and how do we move forward on this matter? Because it sounds absolutely amazing. The African Muslim self-determination and also the Equality Charter and the African Muslim Common Agenda. Okay, we just seem to have lost brother Malik Arafat there. Let's go for a quick ad break and try and get him back online to try and respond and wrap up on this very important issue around Muslims and much needed dawah in the African townships. So stay with us. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. And we do apologize. We seem to have lost the link with brother Malik Arafat. We were talking about, he obviously is the founder and leader of the African Muslim Assembly of Azania, Amma Azania. And they've had several meetings with several Muslim personalities and organizations in the past few weeks to introduce the African Muslim Self-Determination and Equality Charter, plus the African Muslim common agenda. What he did say is that they've been generally very well received, that there has been concerns and queries that have to a great extent helped them to redefine and remodel the concept. And the whole idea underpins the issue around dawah, much needed dawah that needs to happen in the townships in and around South Africa. And alhamdulillah, once that is achieved, then we can move north beyond our borders. Malik did suggest that the Christian missionaries are really hard at work and are really taking over a position where Muslims should be standing in very, very firmly. Also, in their recent meeting on Saturday, the 14th of May, the Amma Azania took the decision to accelerate the building of alliances with both Muslim and non-Muslim NGOs and organizations with the same objectives as Amma Azania, and are keen to promote the charter and common agenda. They go on to say that the Amma Azania will continue to introduce both the Charter and Common Agenda to Muslims across South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa through the 1 million Muslim signatures campaign. The launch date and venue for the campaign will be announced immediately after consultations with key stakeholders who've shown interest in taking part once that process has been completed. He goes on to say, we hope to publicly adopt the Charter and Common Agenda in South Africa upon the receipt of 100,000 signatures. There is also the possibility of similar events across the region. And that was a statement which was issued by Brother Malik Arafat, founder and leader of the African Muslim Assembly of Azania. It is exactly 9:14. We'll be back with you in a minute or two, and we will be chatting with Hassan Chunara from Africa Muslim Agencies.